Borough Council Town Hall to speak with Peter Lamb MP and Michael Jones, Council Leader, about the proposed West of Ifield development. Michael, thank you very much for your time today. We're here to discuss the West of Ifield development, and in particular Crawley Borough Council's view towards that development. You've made your feelings towards it quite clear, so maybe you could start by summarising why Crawley Borough Council objects to this development.
Absolutely, and my apologies to everyone watching that I wasn't able to make your annual general meeting. Unfortunately, it's been quite a lively time in local politics recently, and we've had to reschedule some meetings, and unfortunately it's meant as a result of that it's clashing with the AGM tonight, I suppose I should say, because that's when you'll be watching it. But First of all, this is a completely speculative large-scale development which is wholly non-compliant with Horsham's latest adopted local plan, and given the major impacts that this scheme would have on Crawley and the huge pressures it would exert on our infrastructure and our services, there's absolutely no way that the scheme should even be considered if it's not local plan led, and it most certainly isn't. And there's currently little prospect of a new local plan being adopted by Horsham anytime soon, certainly not by the looks of it. Second, there's no doubt that the scheme would add really significant congestion and pollution to Crawley's roads, meaning that there would be big problems for all our residents and the surrounding area. The proposed road layout is effectively a cul-de-sac into the west of Ifield, and its residents will naturally want access to the strategic road network through Crawley, so that's going to create an absolute nightmare for everyone. It's not been thought through. Now looking at the finer detail of the Homes England application as well, I'm very disappointed because Crawley is barely mentioned in the application, despite where it's situated, and it appears that little thought's actually been put into either Crawley's infrastructure needs or all the needs of our residents, including, for example, access to affordable housing. The scheme's design proposals are very disappointing. Again, they fall short of the new design codes that have been introduced, standards that have been introduced by the government, which, given that Homes England is meant to be sort of agency, it's quite disappointing. I also have very real concerns that the West of Ifield development, as it's currently designed, would do tremendous harm to the local environment, nature, including the landscape, but also the character around Ifield Brook Meadows, which we've got to look to be protecting. I also have really major concerns about the impacts on the ecology, heritage, and also the negative impact on the visual character of the Ifield Village Conservation Area. I mean, the thing that they need to be mindful of, and they're not mindful enough of, is that some of the real focus of our history is in and around Ifield. That was what was there to begin with. So, and I suppose finally, in this rather long summary, is there's nowhere near enough detail to show that the appropriate mix of land uses can be provided to meet residents' needs, which means that they would be obliged to draw on Crawley's services to the detriment of our existing residents, and that's something that can't be fudged.
Yes. You mentioned that this application is not plan-led, and in fact in July 2023, Homes England themselves said that they wouldn't be putting in an application until such time the site was in an examined local plan. So do you think that in an ideal world, would you have Homes England withdraw this application until such time the site is allocated in an examined plan?
Oh yes, absolutely. I believe it would. I mean, I suppose there is pressure on them to actually deliver some housing, and clearly I think they're experiencing issues all over the country with that, because it's not a straightforward process. But I also suspect that they thought that the Horsham local plan might be settled more quickly than it actually has been. But that's some of that's down to Horsham District Council, I'm afraid. But that doesn't mean that just because something hasn't gone to plan that they should then try to find
change theirs.
Absolutely. Well, should try and find ways to sort of circumvent the process.
Are there any changes that Homes England could make to these plans that would make it acceptable to Crawley?
Well, I don't know. I think it's questionable that whether any changes that Homes England might come up with would be acceptable to Crawley, because there are so many negative impacts. I mean, just to give you one, the only way of preventing Crawley's road network from being hugely impacted by the proposals is the development of a new strategic multimodal transport link between the A264 and the A23, and this would be hideously expensive, and I doubt therefore that Homes England would be prepared to countenance it.
No. And are Crawley's officers or councillors having bilateral conversations with Horsham Council or West Sussex to continue to stress their objections?
Yeah, absolutely. Crawley's local planning authority has submitted a firm objection to the West of Ifield proposals that have been backed up by detailed and comprehensive technical planning and explanations. And this is a result of excellent and diligent work from our planning officers, through whom we've made very clear to Horsham the extent and the depth of our concerns and objections. Now, Crawley's planning authority as well, which I spoke at, has made at the meeting of when this was going through, we've made our position as a statutory consultee crystal clear. The ball's now in the court of Horsham as the local planning authority for the scheme, and Homes England as applicant to respond and propose solutions to the concerns that we've raised. I remain unconvinced that they'll be able to respond sufficiently to change our position. And again, I suppose I just expressed the frustration I always do at this time, that something that's right on Crawley's boundaries and that will so fundamentally affect it is something that effectively we're a mere consultee on, when there's no doubt in my mind that the main urban area of Horsham is not going to be disturbed by this in quite the same way.
Yes. Moving on to the golf club.
Yeah.
What do you think about Homes England serving notice on the club before the planning application is decided?
I think what Homes England has done, and I don't wish to be too harsh about it, but bluntly, it's completely unacceptable, and it's bordering on the arrogant, really. Given that it's presuming that the application is going to get permission without any delay, which is an interesting presumption to make. Homes England have also entirely failed to demonstrate that they're able to get anywhere near making up for the loss of what is a very high quality golf amenity elsewhere. They simply have shown no evidence of how they're going to do this.
No. And that's been identified by bodies such as England Golf and Sport England as well.
Yes.
Moving on to utilities,
yes.
We've seen reports that net zero targets have resulted in thousands of completed homes being unable to connect to grids wherever they are locally, which of course is preventing the house sales and discouraging builders from starting new projects if they can't have access to the grid. What is Crawley's capacity like on the electricity grid? Could it cope with West of Ifield?
Are we talking about water or electricity?
Electricity,
right,
yes.
Sure. I mean, it's a very good question. It's not really one that the council can answer. I mean, it's probably more one for our colleagues at the UK Power Networks. I mean, I am aware, however, that there have been power supply capacity issues in the borough affecting other developments locally in the past, and such schemes were a whole lot smaller than what they want to do at West of Ifield. So, an electricity supply problem is certainly not inconceivable. I mean, we had one recently which was very frustrating, where we had a project that could have happened potentially at Metcalfe Way, County Oak, and it just simply couldn't go ahead. And this was more commercial than residential,
right.
But it couldn't go ahead, frustratingly, because UK Power Networks said we can't supply you the power for it, it's too significant. Now that's obviously worrying. Now this is going back about 2 years now, but I think it shows the state that the public utility network has been allowed to glide into. This doesn't happen overnight.
No.
This is sort of decades of underinvestment. And I mean, I don't want to be too simplistic, but I think privatisation and shareholders' profits have probably been paid a little bit too much attention, and not enough investment in the supporting infrastructure.
And we've seen that a lot with various utilities, haven't we?
Yeah.
And the train networks.
Very sadly indeed, that too.
Thank you for your time today, Peter.
That's all.
Peter, I know that you've had some previous discussions with Thames Water with relation to the wastewater treatment works and their capacity. Has there been any progress in those discussions at all?
So with wastewater, it's obviously a big concern for us, and it has been a big concern of mine back when I was council leader, because the sewage facilities for this town were built on what they thought at the time would be the size of population, which is about 40,000,
yeah.
and it's increased to 60,000. Funny enough, we've just in the last census, we've hit the 120,000 mark, which was estimated by the New Town Commission when they wound up as being the maximum the town would ever hit.
Gosh.
Obviously, this development would take us over that by quite a bit more. Sewage capacity is running at maximum. We know that. Now, when I met with Thames Water, they said to me that they had plans for investing in that facility and that I could get a tour and they'd show me all of it. I haven't seen those plans yet, I'm afraid.
Right.
I have been chasing them literally just this week to try and get a copy.
Excellent, thank you very much. Michael, you mentioned Ifield Brook Meadows earlier. We know that putting some cycle paths and footpaths through Ifield Brook Meadows is key to Homes England's active travel aspirations. But we understand that Crawley Borough Council hasn't received a planning application yet for these footpaths and cycle paths. Incidentally, as we speak, Ifield Brook Meadows is under several feet of water.
I believe it, yes.
Yeah. So, were this application to come in and your wider concerns with the plan not having been addressed, how might you respond to such an application?
As far as I'm aware, they haven't submitted anything, and I think I'd have been told if they had been. I mean, if and when they do, I mean, the local planning authority will be obliged to assess and determine on its own merits any future application for these cycle paths or cycle lanes and footpaths in or around Ifield Brook Meadows. Now, whether or not west of Ifield plans have been approved or not beforehand or not is unlikely to make any material difference to the assessment of such an application. Would be the answer I'd have. I mean, but it's obviously until we see it, it's difficult to.
You can't say.
Yeah.
You can't say. And do you think that Homes England should have put in the application to Crawley before or simultaneously with the application to Horsham, given that these are so key to the active travel plans and the impact on our transport network?
Yeah, well, I think it seems strange that the whole thing hasn't been put together. I mean, also I suppose it raises the question: well, what happens if you get one but not the other? I mean,
exactly. And we know that actually, as it stands, there are no cycle paths for such paths that would be created to join up to throughout Ifield and the Crawley network. Have Homes England spoken to your officers about how the plans to connect up the cycle paths within Crawley will happen?
Not as far as I'm aware. I think I can almost very confidently say definitely no. I mean, anything like that would require detailed technical discussions between the relevant experts to determine definitively how that would work. And I'm advised that no such conversations have taken place yet. Yeah.
So, going on to the planning application itself, and you yourselves have objected very strongly, and in fact the responses to the application from official bodies identify many errors and lots of missing information, and several bodies have objected outright, such as yourselves. What's your view of this level of objection, and in particular, how important do you think Gatwick Airport's objection is?
Well, I think it just underlines, doesn't it, just how premature the application submission is, and also the extent to which it just hasn't been thought through properly, to my mind. I mean, Homes England have clearly decided just not to bother to engage properly with those consultees and who are now objecting, and as a consequence, they're now getting all this at this stage of the process where everyone is raising their concerns and objecting. Now, I think that Gatwick Airport's objection is pretty significant, particularly as they are responding in the context of government consent for their new Northern Runway scheme, and they're embarking on a long-term growth trajectory. This isn't something minor. I mean, this is major economic development. They don't want anything standing in the way of that. Now, again, I think this is something that should have been alive to.
Yeah.
The government certainly should be.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, isn't it? A real dichotomy. And moving on now to Gatwick Airport, a very, very important business for this town, employs a lot of our people. We know that Gatwick Airport has put in an objection to the West of Ifield development. How significant do you think that objection is?
I mean, it could be quite significant. I mean, if you take Forge Wood, which is the most recent neighbourhood built within the town, that spent about 20 years in which we sort of development hell, going through one different tier of planning appeal after another, on the basis of the fact that it was going to be within Gatwick's potential noise contour for that further runway if it came forward. I couldn't tell you, but I'm not an expert planner. What I would say is it is very clearly a significant planning consideration in terms of the impact that might have on that safeguarded land. That safeguarded land is under review because the argument is with Gatwick already getting another runway, do they really need land for an additional runway? And there's going to be lots of different considerations which are taken into account, but it's for Horsham District Council now to weigh up the impact of that, and ultimately, as part of any judicial review, the courts will do that later down the road. But I do find it very interesting because, of course, Gatwick Airport previously was saying they were going to need these houses for their workforce, and now apparently they don't.
They don't. No, thank you very much, Peter. Finally, Michael, if Horsham do give the go-ahead, is it possible that Crawley will take further action, such as a judicial review?
A judicial review is an extremely expensive undertaking. I'm not trying to avoid the question. It's just, it's just hugely costly. Crawley Borough Council is a very successful council, but it's not a large council. And the council going alone and launching a judicial review is, I'll be honest, is quite unlikely. If there are other parties with deep pockets who take the lead on a judicial review, then who knows? But whether there would be, it's difficult to speculate at this stage. I mean, I suppose look, it'd be a rare thing to actually sell it to people, this actually, but we're just over 2 years away from local government reorganisation and the advent of a much larger unitary authority than Crawley, which will likely have a much larger larger budget and therefore deeper pockets. And so, who can say what the position is that they might take? But nothing's ruled out. But I think the key for judicial review, to a certain extent, is a decision has to be taken, and I'm not sure a decision has been taken yet because they're still going through what has been a drawn out process. But clearly, with what we're seeing with the application, it seems to be making its way through Horsham District Council's processes now, doesn't it? So, yeah. But we're ruling nothing out. But saying that, I hope that the campaigners and residents will understand that this is a significant amount of money to spend, and we still have all the other things that Crawley Borough Council does to pay for as well, which people will also get upset about. Perhaps not so much as in West of Ifield, but you know, we have to take that into account as well.
Michael, thank you very much for your time today.
Huge pleasure. Thanks.
Peter, is there anything that you would like to say at this point with relation to?
Just to say, you know, I remain deeply unconvinced that development as is currently proposed is in the interest of the town to build. I have spoken with the Minister directly. I'm continuing to correspond with him on details to do with that. Crawley does desperately need housing, but it needs housing that local people can afford and needs to have the infrastructure. That means it doesn't come at the detriment of the existing community. And it is for Homes England, if they want to bring this forward, to put that in those plans and demonstrate that it's guaranteed it's going to happen. If they can't do that, then really, why is this in the town's interest?
Thank you very much, Peter.
Not at all.